Majority, red.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Monsoon Live right here in the arena. My guest at this time, he's a local kickboxer and MMA fighter. His record in kickboxing, 35-8 with one draw, MMA 4-5. Give it up for Brima Kamara. I know I probably butchered that, so I apologize.
Brima Kamara.
Brima Kamara, thank you for joining us, man.
Likewise.
How long have you been doing kickboxing?
I've been doing kickboxing for almost 9 years, I believe, by this time. I started when I was 16, turning 17 in the summer of 2008. And I had my first fight in the beginning of January 2009 as an amateur. I turned pro this year, 8 years later, I guess. It was in January in Hamburg, same place I turned amateur in. And I'm 1-0 as a kickboxer as a pro and 0-1 in MMA as a pro.
Why did you go into kickboxing? Like, what was your motivation?
I was into martial arts more or less throughout my entire life. Either kung fu, and I always liked kung fu movies. I loved the anime cartoons. We had like these crazy fighting scenes, and I always was into that kind of stuff. And it was also my favorite kind of workout growing up. When I moved by Jack's Gym where I train now, that's when I started kickboxing. And I love the style. I love the pace of kickboxing. I love the art.
Okay. Why do you prefer kickboxing over MMA?
Kickboxing, aesthetically, I think it's a much more beautiful sport. It's more fast paced. There's less clinching. There's less grappling. With MMA, you can kind of stall out a lot. And the stand up in MMA, because of the gloves you have, you can't really have prolonged exchanges with your opponent, or it's very easy if you're a superior striker for the fight to change into a grappling match very quickly, where in kickboxing you gotta fight yourself out of every situation using your hands and feet.
Now, I know there's different types of kickboxing. What's the one that everybody, if they're watching it, sees the most?
It could depend on the country, but what's really the most popular right now is glory kickboxing. That's like a kind of modification of K1, and kind of between low kick kickboxing and Muay Thai, where you have leg kicks, you can throw knees to the face, you can't throw elbows, and they have some kind of modified clinching system. I don't like it quite as much as I do like low kick kickboxing, where it's very comparable to boxing. You can't really clinch, but you can throw kicks to the leg up to the head. But K1's kind of style now, I guess it kind of breeds or combines the cultures of the Muay Thai community and the kickboxing community, even some of the MMA striker community. You can clinch a little bit, you can knee. It's a little rough, a little primitive and rudimentary in some areas, but it's a fun sport.
Now, we always have like viewers sending in questions, and one of our viewers had asked, how does the training for kickboxing differ from the training for MMA?
It goes along with the differences where in MMA you have to be well-rounded in both the realms of stand-up and grappling. You can't rely on your grappling and clinching so much in kickboxing. I mean, a little bit if it's a glory or Muay Thai fight where you're allowed to clinch and throw your opponent or grab your opponent. Kickboxing, I think you need to have better conditioning overall, especially with your shins and even just being able to throw combinations. And in MMA, you don't have to be a volumetric striker to be a successful MMA fighter. And kickboxing, you don't have to throw like a lot of combinations. You need to be able to keep throwing and scoring points throughout the fight to win. You can't just throw your opponent and stall him on the ground, or grab him and clinch him Muay Thai and throw knees and kind of hug until the bell rings.
Cool. We've noticed the popularity of kickboxing declining due to MMA. Do you see it making a comeback as MMA's probably hits its peak? Do you see the kickboxing world?
I would kind of disagree. It kind of reached. It's gaining some kind of popularity. It shifts up and down, but MMA kind of brought more attention to the kickboxing world and the Muay Thai world, because you need those kind of tools in those sports to kind of excel as a striker within MMA, beyond boxing in a sense, So, for example, Muay Thai in the U.S. Probably over 10 years ago, it wasn't as deep as it was today. Now we have platforms like social media or YouTube to kind of give people knowledge of that. You also another difference from kickboxing back in the day. A lot of the styles weren't regulated. Muay Thai and all that wasn't as strictly regulated as they are today. They even the styles itself changed. Like I said, for example, Glory kickboxing is a modification to kind of get more bigger audience, because back in the day in USA, kickboxing was mainly above the waist. So you had to kick, you had to wear shoes. Mm-hmm. That's not popular anymore. It's not popping, and that's probably not going to make a comeback anytime soon. So it's probably not going to exceed MMA, and probably never will exceed boxing as far as popularity. But it's a growing sport.
Okay. When is your next fight? Do you have any up and coming fights?
I'm hoping to fight in July 15th in Hamburg, PA. Granted, I do get matched up. It's very difficult for me to get matched up due to my amateur background, which is pretty much more extensive than anybody in the region that's not a boxer.
So people see that and they're like, we'll do a pass.
Yeah, I guess.
What advice do you have for folks who want to go maybe take up kickboxing maybe as a sport or just for fun?
That's a little bit of the biggest question. I mean, if you like the sport, then do it every try it. It can benefit you in all sports. Any kind of competitive martial arts, whether it be boxing, MMA, they have elements that can what's the word I'm looking for? Be transferred over to or interchangeable with other sports. Like the boxing that you learn from this regular boxing is very transferable to kickboxing. You need a good boxing foundation. Even from boxing to kickboxing to Muay Thai, even MMA. They have to have a good jab in a sense. If you're a kickboxer, get some good flexibility that can transfer to any sport you want to do, whether it be Muay Thai or MMA.
Okay. Is there, as we wrap this up, is there any places that they can follow you online, or do you have a channel that folks can check out any of your fights?
I recently started a YouTube channel. It's King Kamara with the one instead of an I. You can also find me on Facebook at Brima Kamara. There's also a King Kamara page. My Instagram's King Kamara, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, and all my social media accounts it's all in the same name. King Kamara with the one is very easy to find.
All right. Well, we'll be hearing about when your next fight is. Hopefully it is July. We'll cover it. Do you want to give any shout-outs, any sponsors, any coaches that have helped you along the way?
I just want to thank God, first and foremost, for allowing me to do what I love. I want to thank my coach, obviously, for bringing me up in the sport, my friends, my family, my lovely wife, and Monsoon Live for hosting me today.
Well, we thank you for coming on. I said you're our first kickboxer. We've done boxing and MMA, and then when we saw you on Facebook, we're like, we gotta bring him on. So thank you very much, man.
You're very welcome.
We'll be covering his fight when it comes. As soon as it comes, we'll post it on our site. But for now, that's it for Monsoon Live. And as always, keep it real.